The Galactic Council chamber was a grand hall of polished obsidian and shimmering energy panels, filled with the most powerful beings in the universe. Representatives of dozens of species sat in ornate thrones, their expressions ranging from amused to indifferent as General Nathaniel Carter stood before them. Carter, tall and broad-shouldered, remained stoic despite the condescending gazes fixed on him. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor of the council members, but he didn't need decoration to command authority. He had seen more battlefields than every admiral in the room combined. The Xal'Voran aren't just another war-hungry race, Carter stated, voice firm. They don't conquer. They consume. If you fight them like any other enemy, you'll lose. Fast. Counselor Veyrath, a serpentine alien with deep blue scales, let out a dismissive hiss. Human theatrics. Your species has always been paranoid. Our fleets outmatch them in every metric. Firepower, numbers, technology. Carter clenched his jaw. He had dealt with arrogance before, but this was something worse, blindness. Technology doesn't mean anything if you don't understand the enemy. The Xal'Voran evolve mid-battle. They analyze, adapt, and neutralize whatever you throw at them. They don't fight wars, they end them. Admiral Xal'Voran, a broad-shouldered warrior of the Kethran species, scoffed. We have repelled countless invasions over centuries, General. Your people are new to the galactic stage. Perhaps if you had more experience, you would understand that wars are won with strength, not fear-mongering. Carter stepped forward, unfazed. Wars are won with strategy, Admiral. And right now, yours is suicidal. The Xal'Voran don't break like traditional enemies. They adapt and counter everything you do. Standard formations won't just fail, they'll get your men slaughtered before they can react. A low murmur spread through the chamber. A few counselors shifted uncomfortably. Some had seen the initial reports from human intelligence, fleets vanishing without a trace, planets stripped clean in days. But the Council's pride was a fortress too thick to breach with reason alone. Counselor Veyrath leaned forward, eyes narrowing. And what would you have us do, human? Surrender. His voice dripped with disdain. Carter exhaled, his patience wearing thin. I'm telling you to adapt before it's too late. You need mobility, unpredictability, small strike forces instead of grand fleets, kinetic weapons instead of energy-based ones. You need to be ready to fight dirty. Xal'Voran crossed his arms. Cowardice. Carter's gaze hardened. Survival. Silence settled over the hall. The council had made up its mind before the meeting had even started. Carter could see it in their eyes. This wasn't a debate, it was a performance. Veyrath straightened. We appreciate your concern, General Carter. But the Galactic Armada will proceed as planned. We will show the Xal'Voran the full strength of civilization. Carter glanced around the chamber, at the decorated officials who had never set foot on a battlefield, at the admirals who had only fought wars against weaker, predictable foes. He knew, in that moment, that they were already dead. He turned on his heel, heading for the exit. Then you better pray I'm wrong. The Galactic Armada assembled in high orbit, a breathtaking display of sheer military might. Thousands of warships, from sleek destroyers to hulking dreadnoughts, formed an impenetrable wall of firepower. Their hulls gleamed under distant stars, shields humming with energy, weapons primed for what the Council believed would be a decisive and effortless victory. Admiral Xal'Voran stood on the command deck of the Veil Careth, the flagship of the Armada, surrounded by officers monitoring battle readouts. Confidence radiated through the fleet, their strategy unchanged despite Carter's warning. The Xal'Voran would be crushed, just like every other threat before them. Then, the swarm arrived. It didn't come in waves or formation. It came like a living storm, a mass of shifting, writhing horrors that defied every known principle of warfare. Biomechanical ships twisted and pulsed, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal, absorbing scans and scrambling targeting systems. They did not slow as they approached. They did not hesitate. They attacked. The first impact was brutal. Council warships fired with precision, unleashing energy beams that should have melted through hulls. Instead, the Xal'Voran absorbed the attacks, their surfaces warping, adapting. The second barrage was less effective. The third did nothing at all. Then the swarm struck back. They moved unnaturally fast, faster than the fleet had accounted for. They weaved through formations, bypassing shields, latching onto hulls with razor-sharp appendages. Metal corroded on contact. Armor dissolved. Ships that had stood for centuries were gutted in seconds. Xal'Voran barked orders. Battle formations tightened, but the Xal'Voran were already inside their defenses. Council fighters scrambled, engaging in desperate dogfights, but the swarm ships changed shape mid-flight, evading fire, outmaneuvering the best pilots in the fleet. The Vale Careth shuddered as a dreadnought beside it was torn in half, its crew's screams cut off in an instant. Plasma detonations lit up the darkness, but they only illuminated the carnage. The swarm wasn't just destroying ships, they were consuming them, breaking them down, repurposing the materials in real time. Every loss made the enemy stronger. Xal'Voran's composure began to crack. Fall back. Regroup at. The communication link cut out. Static. Then screams. Officers frantically rerouted transmissions, but entire battle groups had gone silent. The swarm had severed their networks, isolating them. The once mighty armada, the pride of the Galactic Council, was being dismantled piece by piece. A desperate retreat was ordered, but there was no escape. Xal'Voran interceptors moved like guided nightmares, cutting off fleeing vessels, ramming them, breaking them apart with tendrils of living metal. No prisoners. No survivors. The battle was over in less than an hour. What had been the largest fleet in galactic history was now debris floating in the void. The Xal'Voran didn't linger. They had no need to gloat. Their message was clear. Back in the council chambers, silence reigned. Those who had mocked Carter minutes before were now frozen in horror, staring at the live feed of burning wreckage. The fleet was gone. Their defenses were shattered. For the first time they understood. And for the first time they were afraid. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The fleet, their supposed invincible armada, was gone. Entire sectors were now defenseless. The Xal'Voran Swarm was advancing, and there was nothing left to stop them. Council members shouted over one another, scrambling for solutions that didn't exist. Fear was thick in the air. Then, all eyes turned to General Carter. He stood where he had before, arms crossed, expression unreadable. No gloating. No I told you so. Just quiet, unwavering certainty. Councillor Verath swallowed hard. General, what can be done? Carter's response was immediate. We fight back. But we do it our way. The arrogance was gone. The council listened. For the first time, they followed orders from a human. Within hours, the remnants of their military were placed under Carter's command. The last remaining ships were refitted, their strategies rewritten. Outdated doctrines were discarded. There was no time for pride. Unlike the Council's rigid formations, humanity thrived on unpredictability. Fleets were broken into strike groups, small, fast, and adaptable. Traditional energy weapons, now useless, were swapped for kinetic projectiles. Railguns, tungsten rods, high-yield explosives, brute force over sophistication. EMP warheads were deployed en masse, targeting the swarm's biomechanical nervous systems. When the Xal'Voran came for the next world, humanity was waiting. The battle began differently this time. No grand armada, no towering dreadnoughts forming neat lines. Instead, human warships darted through the void in erratic patterns, firing in rapid succession before vanishing behind debris. The swarm moved to adapt, but for the first time, their evolution failed. The EMP strikes landed first. Pulses of electromagnetic energy rippled through the enemy's living ships, disrupting their regenerative abilities. The swarm twitched, momentarily stunned. It was all the opening humanity needed. Railguns fired. Solid metal slugs, moving at near-relativistic speeds, tore through the Xal'Voran like paper. Unlike energy weapons, there was nothing to adapt to, no frequency to recalibrate against, no power source to absorb. Every impact shattered biomechanical hulls, leaving nothing but drifting husks. The swarm, for the first time in their existence, hesitated. Humanity pressed harder. Strike teams infiltrated larger Xal'Voran vessels, planting nuclear charges deep within their structures. Coordinated bombardments shattered entire clusters before they could react. The battle that had once seemed impossible to win was now turning into a slaughter, but not the one the Council had predicted. By the time the last Xal'Voran warship fell silent, the battlefield was unrecognizable. What was once a feeding ground for the swarm was now littered with their broken corpses. Humanity had done what the most powerful species in the galaxy had failed to do. Back in the council chambers, the silence was different this time. It wasn't shock. It was realization. Humanity had not just survived. They had won. And they had done it on their own terms. Carter turned to face them. Now you understand. The war was over. The Xal'Voran Swarm, once believed to be an unstoppable force, was gone. The battlefield was silent, littered with the remains of creatures that had never known defeat, until now. What had taken the Galactic Council centuries to build had been shattered in a single day. What had taken the swarm eons to perfect had been undone by human hands. In the aftermath, the Council reconvened. But it was not the same Council. The chamber felt smaller, quieter. Gone was the arrogance, the air of superiority. Those who had dismissed humanity as a lesser species now sat in uneasy silence. They had seen what Carter's people were capable of. Councillor Veyrath, once a voice of scorn, spoke first. "We owe humanity a debt that cannot be repaid." The words were careful, measured. "You have saved not only yourselves, but all of us." Admiral Sholtok, his once proud posture now weighed with humility, stepped forward. "Your tactics, your brutality. I did not understand them before. But now I see. We have spent too long fighting wars of posturing and control. You fight wars of survival. And you win." Carter listened, arms folded, face unreadable. The room had changed. But he knew better than to mistake gratitude for trust. Another counselor spoke, voice hesitant. "We would like to offer humanity a place of leadership within the Council. You have proven yourselves indispensable." Carter met their gazes. "Now you listen." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A confirmation of the power shift that had taken place. Humanity had earned its place, not because it was given, but because it had been taken. There was unease beneath the surface. The Council recognized humanity's strength. But with that recognition came fear. Veyratha's gaze flickered. "What happens now?" Carter's answer was simple. "Now we prepare. The Xal'Voran weren't the first threat, and they won't be the last. Next time, you'll be ready." A pause. "Because we won't always be here to save you." That last sentence lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. The Council had ruled for millennia, believing themselves to be the pinnacle of civilization. Now, they understood the truth. Humanity was no longer beneath them. Humanity was above them. And somewhere, in the vast reaches of space, Earth's fleets were already growing stronger.